Welcome to Hail Varsity Radio, the voice of Husker Nation. Insight, opinion, expertise, with the biggest and best names talking Nebraska across the state. Join the show on Twitter at Hail Varsity and at Schmidt_radio. Call in at 402-466-ESPN or 1-800-825-5865. Here's Chris Schmidt.
Welcome to it, the midweek editions here at Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, and loaded up. Good news for Nebraska football on the recruiting front with Pop Watson saying yes to the Big Red. Really cool scene, awesome coverage from Greg Smith as the announcement came, and then, basketball was played. So we'll have a unique sit-down here with not only coach but a proud dad. Bill Watson is coach for Springfield Central football and basketball. So Coach Watson coming up here in about 5 minutes. Mike Babcock will join us from Hail Varsity. We'll talk some hoops and baseball with Babbers. Spring football is also looming, so plenty to get in touch with Mike about. Mike Schuhart from Wilderness Ridge, his reaction to Phil Mickelson's week. And Shuey may launch a grenade or two about basketball. Greg Smith will recap what this quarterback means for Nebraska in the 2023 class and just overall the talent that Nebraska got from way out in Massachusetts. And then we'll run down some tough questions with Nebraska basketball's future. The men and Andy Markowski will be with us, get his thoughts on the Husker women as they take on Wisconsin on the road. Numbers to dial up, numbers to get involved. 466-3776, 466-3776, 800-825-5865. Give us a follow. Find us on Twitter at Schmidt_radio. Chris Schmidt, that's me. Elijah Herbel at Herbal Essence is where you follow and find him on Twitter. And as always, follow ESPN Lincoln and at Hail Varsity on Twitter for all your Big Red needs. So a couple of thoughts here. When I look at the talent here of Watson and I look at just how this went down and who Nebraska got, there's regional talent, and then there's a kid that you think can be exquisite for your offense. There's plenty of history and background with Coach Whipple and the Watsons, and that makes you feel good in the recruiting game on top of the incredible talent as that's where Nebraska decided to go. I mean, Watson's 6 foot, 190 pounds, and his accuracy is really good. His footwork really good, and he's able to just go make it happen in this offense. Excited to talk to his dad, Bill Watson, here in just a moment about the fit, the connection, and then Nebraska. I mean, that's it's a ways away to make that trek from Massachusetts to Lincoln, but it felt right in Pop's post announcement interview. So I really like his skill set. Am I wrong, Elijah, or does he strike you as like a little bit of a Kyler Murray?
Yeah, I mean,
that's not a this kid's the next Kyler Murray. That's not a fair comparison. His game reminds me of that.
Yeah, where it's just his ability to when the play's breaking down, he can get outside the pocket, stay behind the line of scrimmage, flip his hips and fire a 50-yard bomb down the field. It's pretty incredible. And the only thing that makes me go, was the biggest knock on a kid in Lincoln, Noah Walters, was really his height. I mean, he had all the numbers and kind of some plays that jumped off you on film, but I'm going to trust the Husker coaching staff here, and I think that could also be a little bit of a byproduct of the new direction the offense is moving in under Mark Whipple. But whenever you pass on a quarterback in Lincoln whose number one knock was that he was short for a quarterback in the East Coast whose number one knock is that he's short, it does raise some questions, but I think that's probably because of the transitioning coaching staff. Yeah, and
listen, you know what Nebraska's gone after recently? They've gone after height and size, more of a pass first. They're going after a pass first kid as well in Watson. It's not that he hasn't run. He has been able to run for probably an average of 300 yards or so a season. But his numbers are flat out incredible when we talk about touchdowns and interception ratio, I mean, it is flat out dynamic. I mean, in 3 years, we're just 8 interceptions. Is it over 50 touchdowns? 56, I believe. 56 and 8 is the ratio. So that's good. He puts the football where it needs to be, and his footwork is really telling. And you know what? When it comes to that connection with Whipple and the quarterback here, Watson, that's your winner. That's your trust. And we'll just kind of get the particulars here, because you did have a junior day showing by Watson to see what he thought of Nebraska. So Coach Bob Watson here is on deck. Hail Varsity Radio. Can stream us, ESPN Lincoln. Find us in different spots around the state with our affiliates. And, of course, always get the podcast locked in. And do that on Spotify, iTunes, and Google Play. Husker basketball, tough one last night. We'll transition here for just a minute. The Big Red falling to Northwestern. That's not new news. Nebraska's had issues. Nebraska's had problems defending the three-point line. Again, Northwestern able to drill 13 threes. Problems with pick-and-roll defense, problems with communication. Nebraska won points in the paint. Nebraska won the rebounding battle. Turnovers were not good, 8 of them in the first half for Nebraska. You had Bryce McGowan's set the all-time freshman scoring record, passing Husker great Hoppin. But it's still the same result. You're still now a third straight year of 20 losses. And it's going to be very difficult here down the stretch to really sell hope, or at least listen to why it will be better or it can be better for Nebraska basketball in the future with the current setup they have. You're going to have roster turnover again. You have Fred Hoiberg that just, poor guy, looks miserable. He was coaching hurt last night with that viral infection, and it just hasn't worked out. What do you do if you're Trev Alberts? Do you hope it gets better based on what Fred will tell you? Here's how and why it's going to be better, Trev. I really want to turn this around. I want year 4. I want a fourth year, and I want to show you why a fourth year will be better. Or is it simply something, look, man, this isn't working. Let's renegotiate a much, much, much smaller buyout. Let's part ways. Let me go back to the NBA, or let me spend time with my family. And Nebraska basketball fans, there's not much that can be sold or told, quite frankly, with the current setup and current system as to why it'll be better. I mean, the best thing you can do is be able to sell hope that it's going to change, and it's not changed at all this season. There's been some flashes of competitiveness, but there's also been some flashes of quit. And that has been problematic. And it's just, the defense isn't locked in. The defense isn't doing the job that they're supposed to do. So, and on top of that, you still have bad shot selection. You still have, I mean, I look at Lat, and this isn't to pick on Lat, but he's one of your tallest dudes. He's your forward. And in almost 25 minutes of action, Lat had 2 rebounds. Right? And you had Verge, who, you can say a lot of things about Verge, but I think Verge wants to win, right? I think Verge wants to score points, but I think Verge thinks that the best way to help the team win is with him scoring points. And he had, I think, 5 turnovers last night, and I feel horrible for a guy like Trey McGowan's, who he still looks like he's pressing. And only 2 turnovers for Trey last night, but there was still some really couple of rough possessions where he tried to dribble into 3 people, gets it knocked away, and there you go. You did have Kobe come off the bench, 6 for 11 or 5 for 11 from the bench. That was a little bit of a bright spot, but overall, too many turnovers by your guards, and despite winning the rebounding battle, you're just not in any semblance of a good communication on that pick and roll, specifically with Northwestern and their size and their ability to shoot.
Yeah, and I mean, from watching that game last night, about the only positive I took away was, the Huskers didn't give up at the end, even though it seemed far out of reach, and the game was out of reach. The Huskers kept on fighting and covered the spread late. And then you also had the cool factor that Bryce McGowan's broke the freshman scoring record, and he didn't do it in his most efficient outing. And I guess that's kind of been the story of Bryce McGowan's this year. Is he has been a little bit inefficient with his scoring. That's been the big knock in addition to his defense. But cool that he was able to break the scoring record. He's probably been the most dynamic freshman that I've seen in my years watching Husker basketball.
Here's the thing, though. Like, it's supposed to have been the first one and done, and it probably will be for Bryce. You get a 5-star, and you've just, I don't want to say you've wasted the talent, but you don't get guys that are NBA draft ready that often. You just don't. Banton went in the second round last year. Roby went in the second round. Pike went in the first round. T. Lou went in the first round, and T left early, but still, it was his junior year, right? You're getting a bona fide top 5 freshman in the country, and he's lived up to it. It's been flat out incredible for what Bryce has done and how he's jumped his game, but the surrounding parts haven't helped, and Nebraska's not in a good spot basketball-wise. Without further ado, let's check in with the coach at Springfield Central basketball and football. We welcome in and say hi to Coach Bill Watson. Coach, thanks for the time on Hail Varsity. How are you?
I'm doing great.
Well, thank you for your time. And, Coach, take us through the emotions of last night and your son, Pop, committing to Nebraska. What was the process like for your family?
Last night was a great night. One of the better, I would say one of the better nights in my life, and I say that because obviously anytime you can watch your children have dreams, have goals, aspirations, and you can help them towards achieving those things, and then you can watch them achieve it, and sit back and just see the happiness, the excitement on your family's face, for any man, that's a special moment, and that's what happened last night. I got a chance to see my son commit to a school. One of his goals has always been, to play in a big time program, and he wants to play NFL football. But this was the first, this was the next step in that process, and it was just a great feeling.
Coach Watson, let's talk about Mark Whipple and his system and how your son at quarterback fits into what Whipple wants to do. Why is it connect so well?
Well, I think that he's had a lot of experience throwing a football. I mean, he's got film, going back to middle school, throwing close to 3,000 yards, and so he's seen a lot of concepts, and he understands a lot about the passing game versus, some of the defenses that we've already seen, some of the vanilla defenses that he's seen. So when Coach Whipple starts to explain his offense, I think he understands the concepts, but I think the way that Whipple breaks the offense down and explains it to him is the process is something that he's already used to. It's something that he's already, been taught. But, obviously, when you get to college, it's more complex, and there's a lot more variables that go into each play. But when he asks questions, there are clear answers, and it's a clear understanding, and the verbiage is the same verbiage that he's accustomed to. So I think he took quickly to the reads and the offense, and then we actually brought some of the concepts back to the high school, and we ran them this year. And they worked well, all of them. We ran some of them in the state championship. We ran we just kind of put packages off the ideas that we got from there. So when you run the plays and you have that type of success, you obviously, you tend to like it or love it a little bit more. And so I just, it's just a lot of things, communication-wise, understanding, so on and so forth, that where he connects with what Coach Whipple wants him to do on the field.
Coach Watson, I've got about a minute till I have to take a break. I'd love to spend a couple more minutes with you after the break, if that works with your schedule. But in about 30 seconds or so here, when it comes to, I guess, trust with Coach with Coach Whipple, was that one of the selling points? Just Coach Whipple's personality.
Yeah, definitely. You know, and him having spent time up here, you know, to understand. I played Division II football, and we played against Whipple when he was at University of New Haven as a head coach. And you know, me knowing the job he did at that time, and then, you know, kind of watching his career move on and the things he's done at every level, whether it be college or NFL, and then just him as a person. You know, he's, like I said, you know, you get a feel for coaches. He's always kept his word. Everything he said he was going to do, he's always done. And you don't get that a lot when you're talking to college coaches. I've spoken to college coaches, and they told me one thing, and then a week later, you know, the opposite has happened. So the trust from him is big, and then the rest of the staff.
Really fast, did you win that game against New Haven back in the day?
No. And to go a little further, we were actually the number one defense in Division II at the time, or scholarship schools at Division II, going into the last 3 weeks, and they carved us up.
Coach Bill Watson with us, his son Pop committing to Nebraska. Coach Watson, hang on. We'll be right back with you, okay?
Yes.
Thank you. That's Coach Watson, his son Pop, headed to Lincoln, the 2023 quarterback commit. We'll hear from Mike Babcock next segment as well. It's Hail Varsity, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Hello, listener. Hey, it's Chris Schmidt with Hail Varsity Radio, and I wanted to let you know about a special deal just for listeners of the Hail Varsity Radio Show podcast. We're offering $10 off the annual subscription price of $29.99. That means that you, for less than $20, can get everything we do. 10 issues of our monthly magazine, our annual football yearbook, and all the premium content we produce at HailVarsity.com. Just go to HailVarsity.com/subscribe and enter in the promo code GBR for $10 off a full year of Hail Varsity. That's HailVarsity.com/subscribe, promo code GBR.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Thanks for hanging in. It's Hail Varsity, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Coach of Springfield Central, Bill Watson, his son Pop, committing to Nebraska, as Coach Watson has stayed on the line with us. Coach, you touched on it last segment, but want to go a little bit further. How early in your son's playing career were schools in on him, and when was that? When did the recruiting process start for you and your family?
Well, I started taking him to one-day camps when he was in 6th grade, and the reason I did it was not to get scholarships or anything like that. It was just to get him accustomed to what the one-day camps look like, to get a feel, because my biggest thing is him being from Massachusetts, and you read the lack of respect that people from outside of the New England area give the state. I wanted him to feel comfortable competing with anyone, and to understand that he couldn't go to a camp and be just as good as anybody. He had to go there and he had to dominate the camp. He had to be first in line. He had to make all his throws. He just had to stand out and be on another level just to be looked at. And so, I started that process, that mental process with him in 6th grade. And one of the camps we used to go to was, obviously was UMass, but we went to several camps. And so he started getting familiar with some of the coaches, at that time. And, he was pretty good at a young age. He played in some All-American games and, did well for himself. So his name was out there at an early age. And then I would say coaches started looking at him in 8th grade. We started getting college coaches following his Twitter, so on and so forth. And then he received his first offer at the UMass camp in 8th grade. He had just came from Penn State, actually, and got home like maybe 3 in the morning. And UMass camp was like 9 o'clock in the morning. And I was in Mexico with my wife. And so he had to get himself up and get up, and I had a friend of mine come take him to the camp, and he went there. And he had a great day, and UMass coaches called me. We were actually getting off the plane, and it was like, listen, we couldn't let him leave here, without offering him. And that was his first offer. And then 3 games into his freshman year, Boston College offered, and then, the interest started rolling from there.
That's pretty amazing. Coach Watson's with us, his son Pop committing to Nebraska. So, Coach, let's put the father hat on and also the coach/play caller hat. There's 2 dynamics there. And when you look at an offense, what is your son's skill set, and how you as a coach did you try and tailor to that skill set?
Well, I think that, he's consistent. You know what you like. I don't think he's had a bad game since his first game freshman year. Every game, he's always been prepared. He's always showed up and had a big game. That is why, as a program, we've been so successful. He's very consistent. He's accurate. I've seen something where they said he was like 60%. He's been at 66%, for passing this year. I think in the semifinals against the number 1 seed, he was 19 for 22 for over 400 yards. Like he makes his reads. He knows where to go. If the read or if the player that he was expecting to get the ball to doesn't get it, he knows where to go with the ball. He protects the football, doesn't turn it over much. And he's just, having that type of, player at the QB position opens up everything on offense. It opens up the run game. We can get the ball. We have some pretty good playmakers at the receiver position. We can get them the ball anytime we want, and we can make people pay. And he's been accurate at all levels: short game, intermediate, deep ball. And like I said, he's been that way since freshman year.
Coach, tell me a little bit about this Pop nickname. Last night was the first time I had heard Pop as the name whenever I saw him on Twitter. So explain to me how that nickname started and what made it stick.
When he was little, and when I say little, I'm talking like 2 or 3 years old. My father, who was passed away since then, but he started calling him that, and the reason he did is because he kind of was like bossing everyone in the house around, like telling them, what he wanted to eat, kind of used to take food off the plate. And so, my father used to say he thinks he's our father. Like he thinks he's, at the top of the food chain and we're his kids. That's how he treats us. So he started calling them Pop, as if like a joke to say like, you're the father, you're the boss. You tell me what you want and I'll get it for you. How grandparents are, they, grandkids, they think they're right all the time and they give them whatever they want. So, that was how it kind of started. Then we all kind of took to it because all 3 of us have the same name. So, it gets kind of tough almost calling. You feel like you're calling yourself anyway when you say the name. So, we kind of just ran with it and everybody kind of just started calling him that since he was 2, 3 years old.
Coach Watson's with us, Hail Varsity Radio. His son, Pop, commit to Nebraska. Great history with Coach Whipple and the system and the fit and the skill set. Last thought, Coach Watson, and thanks for the time. It's wonderful to chat with you. Just your thoughts on the Nebraska program and the direction it could go.
Me personally, I've been watching college football all my life. So I know Nebraska, from back in the days when you had Mike Rozier and you had the Taylor and you had, all of those studs at Nebraska, and they were having wars with Jamel Holloway and the Oklahoma Sooners and the Miami Hurricanes and so on and so forth. And I think it's a sleeping giant. I think if it starts going in the correct direction, I think it can. It's one of the programs that can jump right back to the top of the college football landscape. And when I watch it, and when we both started watching Nebraska last year, excuse me, what we saw was a team that was right on the cusp of doing it, but they were, kind of running into a wall as far as not being able to finish off games. Maybe a little, getting a little tense in the fourth quarter, so on and so forth. So I've seen that, but I've seen the losses, but I also seen a team that's right there. You're losing a lot of games by one score. That, to me, that's more mental than anything else. And you add a couple of players and you get the right type of momentum going, all of those games could be wins. So from a talent standpoint and, coaching and so on and so forth, they're right there. I think with the adjustments that Coach Frost made with the staff, and I'm not just talking Whipple, I'm talking about Coach Joseph. Is it Mickey Joseph?
Yep, Mickey Joseph, wide receivers coach. Yep.
With him, and just some of the new coaches that came in and the energy that they're providing with some of the kids that came in the transfer portal. I think that they have a chance to be very good this year. I think that they will be one of the surprise teams in the country, and I think if that happens and they start getting the right recruits in there. And when I say the right recruits, I'm talking about kids that know how to win and know what it takes to win. And a lot of that work is done in the off season. Start getting some more kids like that in the program. Like I said, now the next thing you know, they're competing for national championships. And I think it can happen. I think it's a process. I think people have to be patient. I think they have the right person at the head coach position in Coach Frost, and I think he's hired the correct coaches around him. And I think, I think it's game time. Like, I expect to see big things from him this year, and I expect to start seeing big things from Nebraska from here on out. And that's why he committed. He doesn't know anything else but winning. I can't remember the last time he hasn't won a championship going back to youth football from the time he started all the way through high school. He's won the state championship every year. The only thing that stopped us one year was COVID and not being able to play the state championship. So he wants to be a part of a winner. And the team doesn't have to be there right now, but, he wants to have the potential to win. That's what motivates him to play football. And, we truly believe Nebraska is that place.
Coach Watson's with us. Did you get that vibe on your junior day visit? I mean, just when it came to peer communication, did Pop feel that way with some of the kids he was able to interact with? Yes,
he did. He definitely felt that. It was a good group of kids, young men that spoke to him. He didn't see the whole team, but he talked to the staff. Seen the investment that the school is making in the student athletes. As far as the new facilities, and the weightlifting program and how they tie the science into it, and excuse me, and just a lot of the things that they have in the program. And he loved all of that, and that was something that, he felt that energy from the coaching staff. He felt, you talk to some of those coaches and it sound like they're ready to put a helmet and shoulder pads on themselves. And he likes being around coaches like that. He likes being around coaches that are confident, that pretty much walk like winning is something that belongs to them. And that's the kind of feel you got from those coaches. Like, there was no question that they were going to win next year. And, that's something that got his juice flowing. And when we left, we were like, he told me, he was like, I could be here. I could see myself here for the next 4 or 5 years. And I kind of just looked at him and nodded and said, okay, we'll go back. And, we spoke to Coach Frost that day and Coach Whipple. And, of course, I asked if the offer was committable, because that's, one of the things you got, especially at the QB position. When a lot of times people only taking one. And at that time, Coach Frost told him, we don't offer kids if we're not prepared to accept, the commitment. So, we talked about it. He spoke to the coaches a little bit more, and he made that decision. So we'll be back up there for in the spring, to watch spring practice or whatever the case, and maybe the spring game. And he'll take an official, but he knew that's where he wanted to be. And, he had the process I really reset for him, because he was down to 2 schools back in December. He was going to commit to either Pitt, where Coach Whipple was, or he was going to commit to Oregon, because he had a great relationship with Coach Moorhead, who was the offensive coordinator there. And it just so happens that Coach Cristobal and Coach Moorhead left Oregon, and then Coach Whipple left Pitt at the same time. So we pretty much was back to square one, and kind of trying to figure everything out. We were going to go up to Ole Miss, and maybe throw the football for them guys, and kind of work there. He still had the Kentucky offer, which, he liked Coach Woodward, who's the receiver coach up there, and Coach Cohen. But he was not number one on their board. He was actually number 3 on the board. Mm. So they were going after 2 other kids. So, we were kind of restarting the process. And when Coach Whipple got to Nebraska and brought us up there, when he called, he said, "You come up here, you're gonna love this place. This place is, we like Pitt, but he was like, you're gonna love this place." And when we got up there, he wasn't lying, and it wasn't anything like we thought it was gonna be. I've never been to Nebraska before, so when I think of Nebraska, I go by, and it sounds crazy, of course, because I'm been around a little bit, but I look at the logo, the mascot for Nebraska. I look at that Cornhusker, and I'm thinking I'm walking into cornfields, and it's going to be farms. And,
you and everybody, man.
And I get to Lincoln, and it's nothing like that. It's it's a city atmosphere. You got nice restaurants and food everywhere, and I was like, wow, I didn't even know it was going to be like this. I'm thinking that in my mind. He's loving it. Going around, the people were nice. They it was great up there. It was like, I feel comfortable leaving them up there, So it worked out. And junior day was a great visit, and we're excited. I'm excited to send him up there and watch him do his thing. He's got one more year here, so he's got to, he want to win another state championship in football. He's playing basketball now. Excuse me, playing basketball now. Hopeful that he wins another state championship in basketball as well. He won one his freshman year. We didn't play. We couldn't compete for one, in 10th grade. So we're making our run now for a state championship in basketball, and we're going to finish off his high school career, on a positive note. Make sure he gives everything he has here to his teammates, and then he's going to go to Nebraska, and he's going to give Nebraska everything he has, while he's up there.
Coach Watson, it was a pleasure to chat with you. We'll do this again, and best to you and your family. Thanks for a few minutes.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Hello, listener. This is Brandon Vogel, managing editor of Hail Varsity, and I wanted to let you know about a special deal just for listeners of the Hail Varsity Radio Show podcast. We're offering $10 off the annual subscription price of $29.99. That means that you, for less than $20, can get everything we produce: 10 issues of our monthly magazine, our annual football yearbook, and all of the premium content we produce at hailvarsity.com. Just go to hailvarsity.com/subscribe and enter the promo code GBR for $10 off a full year of Hail Varsity. That's hailvarsity.com/subscribe, promo code GBR.
And we're back.
Fellas, think we could listen to the radio
on Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery.
Yes! That's awesome!
We'll check in with Babbers later this week. Mike Babcock, we ran long with Coach Watson. Thank him for his time. Thank Mike Babcock for his flexibility. God love Babbers. Greg Smith next hour on Nebraska's new quarterback. Eddie Markowski on Husker Hoops. We welcome in Mike Schuhart, Wilderness Ridge Golf. Shuey, a little too cold for golf, but it's going to warm up here. Spring's around the corner. And before we dive into some Husker stuff, Shuey, what's your reaction here to Phil Mickelson's interview that was apparently not completely off the record, and some of the scorched earth that he laid out against the PGA?
I'm not really sure. I've been watching a lot of that, listening to a lot of that, and I think I'm kind of in the same boat as everybody else. A lot of disbelief, trying to just figure out what the heck is he trying to do? I mean, everybody's in disbelief on what he really is doing. What is he trying to prove? What is so wrong with the PGA Tour? And he's not making any statements on anything evolving and revolving around any of the issues that he has. So everybody just doesn't quite understand what he's doing, But you got to know Phil a little bit. Phil is quite egotistical. He definitely likes to be in the limelight of things, front and center. So I don't know. I'm in a lot of disbelief in somewhat. It doesn't surprise me because what I know of Phil, I don't know him great, but I've been around him a little bit. I mean, he's kind of a goofy guy.
Mike Schuart's with us. The Greg Norman and Phil teamed up with the Saudis for this golf project, and as it was kind of trying to get off the ground, I mean, what was your read on it? I mean, we've seen other instances in sports where this is attempted, and I think back to the original USFL with some of the star power they drafted and paid, be it from Herschel to Rozier to Flutie to Jim Kelly. I mean, they didn't have the crowds the NFL got, but they got their spring league, and then it didn't last. We've seen other football leagues attempt it, but was there any serious threat to the PGA, in your opinion, with this Saudi league?
No chance. Greg Norman's been trying to do this. He tried to do this, 10 or 15, 20 years ago. He tried to do this. He's still on this thing, trying to create some type of a mega tour or a star-powered tour. But it'll never go. It'll never go because the PGA Tour has what the elite players want, the PGA Tour has. And that's what the other tours that try to become into existence don't have. They have the majors. The majors are what define great players. How many majors do you win? Masters, U.S. Open, British Open. Who cares if you win the Saudi Open? I mean, it doesn't have the same clout that all this other the PGA Tour has. So, I mean, you can get some players to go, but your star-powered players want to be able to be eligible to play for the major championships. So the other tours don't exist unless you get the star-powered players to play. Well, they're not going to go because you take away really what it is that they want, what they really want. So it's like, and that was evident. I mean, you look at, I think Phil overestimated a little bit the clout that he think and the relationships that he had, thinking he was going to get 30 of the top players to go over there. And, man, the minute they hit the fan, those guys were like, no, thank you. I mean, so he had no one in his corner. So right there is evident that he really didn't have the backing that he thought he had, And money is not, especially these guys, you talk about, playing for all this money. Yeah, money is very important, but, I mean, you have hundreds of millions of dollars already, these guys. So just winning a tournament for a lot of money is, it's important, but a major is way more important to them. So they don't have what these guys want.
You can't put a price tag on the green jacket. End of discussion. No. Right?
End of discussion. You can't. The Wanamaker Trophy, you can't. I mean, there's just one. There's only one of those. And it's like, they don't have that. I don't care how many millions you're going to give me. It's not a green jacket.
A thought on Zach Johnson with the Ryder Cup captain, ESPN reporting that?
Interesting. I mean, well-deserved. I mean, he's a guy that is very, very liked out there, very respected out there, incredibly respected out there. I mean, he's a incredible talent, especially a great background of coming from Drake University, where he wasn't even the number one player on their team, to doing what he's done. So he has a tremendous amount of respect from all the players out there. He'll assemble a really good team around him too. So great pick. I mean, probably a little younger than I would thought. I thought maybe a few years away from him being picked, but no, he'll be a good one.
Mike Schuart's with us, Wilderness Ridge Golf. Shuey, about 90 seconds here. Husker basketball, Friday night, Iowa. Slim, none, or good chance Nebraska puts up a fight Friday night?
There's no way they can win any basketball game. Even at their best, another team can't play bad enough for them to beat anybody. I mean, that's the only chance they have to win a game because they're not good. I mean, they play bad basketball. I mean, I don't understand what they're trying to do, how they do what they do. I'm befuddled with that. So there's no way. Even their best basketball they play, they cannot beat a team. They can't. They don't do anything. They play horrible defense. They shoot horrible threes. That's all they do. They have no ball screens. They don't cut to the basket. I mean, I don't understand. I mean, I just don't get it.
Should we
dribble down the court? They dribble down the court and shoot up a three. How many times has the guy grabbed the rebound? That same guy is still dribbling down the court to the hoop. I just don't get it. I'll never get it.
We got this recorded, so we'll play it back for you if you end up being wrong about the game Friday night.
Shuey's like, bring it on. Shuey, about 20 seconds. What's going on at Wilderness, bud? How about memberships?
They're going great. I mean, every day somebody's coming in. We're signing up somebody. I mean, progress is happening. A lot of construction on the inside of the building. You can see the transformation starting to take place, and then the pool. So it's super exciting. People are excited about it. So we're got a lot of interest. People are coming out every day. Like I said, signing up and waiting for the season to get started. So come on out and see what we have. So I think people will be very pleasantly surprised, and it's going to be It's going to be a really fun summer.
Shuey, we'll see you soon, buddy. Thank you so much for the time.
You bet. Thank you. Stay safe.
Chime in 402-466-ESPN or email the show, Chris@HailVarsity.com.
Just try me.
Back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Good first hour. Big thanks to Mike Schuart. A tip of the cap to Mike Babcock and Coach Bill Watson. His son, Pop Watson, committing to Nebraska. Greg Smith in 10 minutes. Eddie Markowski. Next hour on the State of Nebraska basketball. Reminder to get buckled up. Game preparation and repetition predicts success in winning. Drivers and vehicle passengers who always use their seatbelts will increase their survival chances if a crash should happen. Remember to always buckle up. A message from the Nebraska Department of Highway Safety Office. John's with us. John, go ahead.
How you doing? Always a good show.
Thanks, man.
I'm not going to run down Holberg or the other coaches. The thing we need to do as Nebraska fans is to do a white paper looking at the regions, our chancellors, our presidents, our athletic directors. The chain of command is what builds a athletic program or a good business or a marriage or a family, and the whole thing has fallen apart. And we need to have an independent investigation going back at least to where Frank Solich got let go and look at this whole situation. Or we're just going to make the same mistakes. And I feel sorry for our new athletic director that's in there right now, but he's going to be caught up in this quicksand. And I just hope some solid heads go in and look at what the heck's going on.
You know, John, thanks for the phone call. Yeah,
well, I have one more quick thing.
Sure.
Okay. Why, if Holberg wants to be around, have him come in and say, "I'll take a 2/3 reduction in my salary."
That's got to be, John. That's got to be what the option is, because you can't keep going on with this.
Buyout. Put it on the line. If he thinks he can do it, then put it on the line and let him come back like Scott Frost did.
John, thank you for the phone call. Listen, we can't. You want to go investigate who and why 20 years ago? I mean, it's going to cost money, it's going to cost time, and what's happened. You move on. You just pray that you have good leadership. And listen, as the academic side don't know sports, never have. They hire people in positions of power to run the sports side of things. And they get a recommendation on who to hire, who you listening to. And you might listen to the right person, and it could be the wrong hire. I mean, who'd have thought the Moose would have missteps with the basketball hire? None of us did. Not because of Moose's basketball hiring history, but because of Fred's history. As far as Frost, there's not a guy in the state or a gal in the state that didn't want Scott to come back here. Mm-hmm. And now you've got a chance to reset with some more experienced coaches, some real go-getters on the recruiting trail, guys who get Nebraska. It could be okay. Basketball's just been a flat-out nightmare, and people were sick of the Miles era, too, because he wasn't winning enough.
See, and my only question with this whole argument of restructuring Hoiberg's contract is what's the incentive for him? With Frost, we knew Frost had a vested interest in wanting to get it right around here. But with Hoiberg, I mean, if I'm Hoiberg, as opposed to lessening my contract for maybe another bad season next year. I just take the $18.5 million.
But see, Fred doesn't.
I dare you.
Fred does not strike me as this ski mask and gun stick up artist that's all about greed. There's pride that Fred has, and this is killing his reputation, quite frankly. Pardon the interruption, but I'd like to save you some money. Hey, it's Chris Schmidt with Hail Varsity, and I wanted to offer listeners of this podcast $10 off the price of an annual subscription. That means that you, for less than $20, can get everything we produce. 10 issues of our monthly magazine, our annual football yearbook, and all the premium content we produce at HailVarsity.com. Just go to HailVarsity.com/subscribe and enter in the promo code GBR for $10 off a full year of Hail Varsity. That's HailVarsity.com/subscribe, promo code GBR.
Welcome to Hail Varsity Radio, the voice of Husker Nation. Insight, opinion, expertise, with the biggest and best names talking Nebraska across the state. Join the show on Twitter at Hail Varsity and at Schmidt_radio. Call in at 402-466-ESPN or 1-800-825-5865. Here's Chris Schmidt.
Welcome to it. It's Hour 2. It's Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. We'll be posting the interview with Coach Williams, the proud dad and, head football coach of Springfield Central. Pop Williams, the quarterback commit last night. Greg Smith, recruiting insider, all over it. We've even pulled Greg into the StreamYard as he is smiling in his home studio, his home office. Can watch Greg Smith right now. Do so on the ESPN Lincoln Facebook feed and also the ESPN Lincoln Twitter handle at ESPN Lincoln. I have not warmed up, Greg. I'm still wearing a stocking hat, and that's kind of how I'm going about things. And Elijah looks like he just shot a deer.
I'm layered up in the studio over here.
So, Greg, you're warm, and you were in the I want to say Florida, California. Where'd you go for a little vacay, bro?
So you guys are gonna groan. I was in the Bahamas.
I was just saying, islands. Did Greg go to the islands?
I did go to the islands. I was hanging out there. We went to Nassau, St. Thomas, and St. Kitts. And had a fantastic time. The weather was nothing like this mess that we're dealing with here. I did not bring it back. I apologize.
We've had decent weather. We haven't had Bahaman weather. Did you go seafood crazy or just hang out at the beach or water, or what'd you do before we get to football?
All of the above. I think I had my weight in double pina coladas. We figured out a couple of nice little spots that they would give us like floaters of extra rum. So that worked out really well, depending on who you ask.
There's Greg, 5-star hangover. I love it. I love it. So let's talk about Pop Williams, Springfield Central. Greg, I'm interested in your take because we've heard Nebraska talk a lot about refocusing in-state. We've heard a lot about Nebraska focusing on the region, and you've got Cole out of Iowa. You got Johnson out of North Wichita. You got Flores out of Gretna, all really talented kids. To Elijah's point, he touched on Walters that didn't end up getting a long enough look by Nebraska, and he's down at North Alabama. That said, you've got a great history and connection from Whipple with the Watson family. So what's your reaction and take here immediately here going this far east for a quarterback that he's wowed all of us? I mean, this is really nice, a top 35 quarterback in the country for Nebraska to get.
Yeah, I think the very first thing after, hey, Nebraska's getting a quarterback and that's great for them for 2023 my thought was, man, it's going to be a huge talking point that they skipped over a handful of guys, it seems, that are a lot closer by, right? And I think that the situations are all slightly different. I think that with Avery Johnson out of Kansas, I think that Nebraska really liked him, but I think Nebraska got in too late. Mm-hmm. Now, that's a situation, though, where you can have a conversation about why was it that Nebraska got in so late. It's not like he's far away. He's just over in Kansas. Nebraska probably probably should have been recruiting him sooner, right? So you can go there with that one. With J.J. Cole, I really like him as a prospect. I've said here and many places in writing and otherwise that I think he's going to end up somewhere in the Big Ten. He just looks like a Big Ten quarterback to me. I just don't know about the ultimate fit with Scott Frost and Mark Whipple's offense there, right? I think that you're going to see a little bit of a shift in the offense, but I don't know if they were ready to go all the way to a pro-style quarterback. The Zane Flores situation out of Gretna, I don't have a great explanation for that one. I don't know why it is that Nebraska has not really had much contact with him at all. I do know that. Like, they obviously have not offered him, but they're not having much contact at all with him. So there's something missing there for them that is not necessarily missing for these schools in the Big 12. Especially here recently, but there is a lot to like about Pop Watson.
We talk about Pop Watson and with his dad kind of laying out where they were at, they started doing camps at a young age. He has had to over-deliver, the way his dad put it, the way I read and listened and heard it, because there's just, I don't want to say a stigma, but Massachusetts isn't known as a football state per se. So every camp that Pop had to go to, he had to just crush it to kind of Heisman off, so to speak, that, well, he's from Massachusetts. So there's always kind of been that chip on his shoulder, and he's thrived well. I know he's a 3-star. I know he's 6 foot. I know he's 180. But, man, he looks really, really fun. Fun's the word for me at quarterback, and you can be fun if you don't turn it over. Greg, he's been really good in high school at taking care of the football.
Yeah, he definitely has. I think just 7 or 8 interceptions, I think, in overall in his career. And he's been a 3-year starter out of high school in Massachusetts. They won the state championship all 3 of those years. I'm sure they'll be poised to make another deep run this year. The thing that kind of, besides him taking care of the football, which you find out from the stats, watching him on film, I think it's a really accurate arm. I think that a lot of times, too, you hear, you mentioned a good word, stigma. You hear kind of that stigma or stereotype of quarterbacks that are smaller, that have really good athleticism, that they're not really that accurate with the football. And that's not the case with Pop Watson. I think that he's a really good passer, both in the intermediate and with the deep ball, as far as his accuracy. And I think that can really help moving forward, especially as you think about it, it all kind of works together. Nebraska kind of accumulating a lot of weapons on the outside. We've been talking about that here over this offseason. You're always probably going to have that with Mickey Joseph around, right? And so him having weapons to throw to put the ball on time accurately is a big deal.
Now, Greg, you can stop me if I'm making too lofty of a comparison here, but when I look at the size, the effortless aspect of the deep ball and just everything I'm seeing with him, it almost strikes me like an unpolished Russell Wilson. Is that too lofty of an expectation to put on him?
Probably. It's too lofty.
I said Kyler Murray, so.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, actually, is that someone mentioned me earlier, Steve Mark here at Hail Varsity, said, yeah, it kind of reminds me of Kyler Murray. And I'm like, whoa, so we go Kyler Murray, we go Russell Wilson. Yeah, that's probably a bit much, but I can see how you got there based on the play style and kind of some of the traits that they all have. If he turns out to be either one of those guys, I think that everybody will be thrilled. But I'm just really interested in, and we won't find this out until December when Coach Frost and Whipple are able to actually publicly talk about him. But what drew Mark Whipple to him, or to Pop Watson from such a young age? Like, that's something that I'm really intrigued by. And it's usually some of those intangibles that are going on there.
They've crossed paths a lot. I think it's one of those guys that Whipple saw early. It'll be great to hear from him, though. You're right. Greg Smith with us, recruiting insider with HailVarsity.com and magazine at Greg Smith HV is where you follow him on Twitter. But I think Whipple's seen this kid enough to know. And Whipple's track record, some of the quarterbacks he's worked with, he's inherited. Some of the quarterbacks he's worked with, he's went out and got. And the conclusion's been the same. He's worked with good quarterbacks, whether he helped make them good or he got them good.
Right. Yeah. And I think that is something that the Watson family really likes about Mark Whipple is if you're going to trust your quarterback son to someone, I think that Mark Whipple is someone that you definitely look at based off of his track record and his experience. And I know when I talked to Watson back after he came out here for Junior Day and got the offer from Nebraska, he was really excited just about the overall offense and the way that Whipple always seems to have an answer for what the defense is doing. You can tell he's also a cerebral kid. I think he's got a high GPA as well. And all of those things, you can kind of tell from talking to him and the family, you can see how Whipple would really gravitate towards them.
Let's talk about this controlled passing game that we're going to expect. I think that's kind of the signature on a Whipple offense. He gets the need to run the football in the Big Ten and run the football in November in the Big Ten. But that said, offenses are throwing the football, and even West Coast offenses, I might have said a dirty word to some Nebraska fans, but the dump off to the tight end or the back out of the backfield is the same number as a run between the tackles for +4, +5. Now, one grinds away and body punches you, one's more finesse. I get it. But when I look at Whipple and this controlled passing attack, Greg, am I nuts? I mean, I think the check down, I think the tight end, I think the out route, and I also know that they can go up top. But that's, to me, what I envision seeing Nebraska doing with their passing game.
Yeah, and it's a little bit different in a departure from what you're used to seeing over the last handful of years, right? You're used to seeing, we're going to just say all of the dirty words with the swing passes and all of that. Like, oh boy, I see you guys looking right now. See what as soon as I
said West Coast offense, you say swing pass. We both need to go to the swear jar, right?
Yeah, they're going to run us both out of here, and so that's fine though. We'll bounce back. But instead of that, I do like the idea of mixing in more of those dump offs and checkdowns, and in part because when you think about the players that Nebraska is trying to recruit at skill positions, there's a lot of guys that could potentially make one guy miss and then take off for additional yardage. I think that adding that element to the offense would be much welcome, especially on a low percentage passing play like those dump offs or the little underneath routes to the tight ends. If we see Nebraska mix in some slants, I know you and I have talked about that.
Love the slant route.
Yeah, especially with some of the wide receivers that they have, right? You throw a slant to Omar or Xavier, even Trey Palmer, and see if he can just get loose. That would be a welcome sight for Husker fans, too.
You know how many years in the Fiesta Bowl or the Orange Bowl, as a kid, I'm watching, there's Tamarick Vanover, slant route, gain of 17. I mean, everyone else ran a slant route against Nebraska. Payback would be fun to throw the heck out of the slant route.
And then when Nebraska does run it, it's Michigan State overtime.
Just stop.
Oh, boy. So Elijah wanted to get in here with the dirty situation. So I guess it's fine.
Greg, some thoughts here on spring ball. We get a chance to see the coaches in a roundtable setting Monday. That'll be great. Coach Frost will kind of set the table for us. And then a few players as well. Some of the names that are new from the portal, presumably, which will be great to hear from them. But give me 5 or 6 guys that kind of got to go do it now. It's really maybe a now or never for them this spring.
Man, there's a lot of guys kind of in that situation. Noah Pola-Gates was the first guy that came to mind for me at safety. Anytime you add that many defensive backs to the room, you need to have your head on a swivel and be ready to come to work. I think of guys that are still kind of young, like a Jamari Butler, I think is another guy that I think Blaise Gunnerson kind of fits in that same role. Both guys that have got really good talk, both publicly and behind the scenes from the coaching staff. But if they can provide something this year, it would be big. There's a number of guys on the offensive line, even guys that we've seen play. Ethan Piper is a guy that this spring is really, really big for him. Even a guy that showed promise and then kind of fell off, and now you're kind of wondering, and people really aren't talking about him, Bryce Benhart on the offensive line, as people are kind of searching to see who's going to replace him potentially. And then really pick a running back, right? Like whichever running back, and probably if you want to narrow it down, it would be Jacques Yant, who really needs to show what he can do, and that he's both ready to take steps on and off the field, because it's not going to get any easier at running back for him to try to get snaps as we continue continue to have guys either come in mid-year, last in January, that were here for winter conditioning, a couple of more on the way when the summer hits. But there's a lot of guys on Nebraska's roster that are in improvement mode this spring, which will make for a really fun spring for all of us. We'll see how it goes for the players.
Greg Smith's with us here, Hail Varsity Radio. And Greg, a name that's almost flown under the radar even through the fall is because of injury and now into the spring has been Thomas Fidone. Husker fans were pretty excited with what they had in Fidone, and the injury kind of curtailed that just a little bit. But do you think he's going to step into a role where he's expected to be the number 2 tight end, or is it going to be a battle with Brewington to see who's going to be on the field more?
I think that most people probably expect Fidone to end up being the number 2 tight end. And if he's going to do that, he's got a great opportunity to show what he can do this spring. Unfortunately for Travis Vokalek, he's out for the spring, as Scott Frost said last month. Or earlier this month, but that's going to give Thomas Fidone all the reps that he can handle, right? And that means he can show that he's ready 100% off of that injury, and he can start to live up to the promise that he had when he was the number 1 tight end in the country coming out of high school. It's a big spring for him, but in a way for him to just take steps, the expected steps that we think he's going to take.
Greg Smith talking recruiting, spring football at Hail Varsity Radio, at Greg Smith HV on Twitter. Greg, what's next for Nebraska on the recruiting trail or even in the portal here? I know we've got a few weeks of spring ball we're excited to see, but there'll be some attrition, which means potentially some openings for Nebraska to continue to add to their roster.
Yeah, I think on the traditional recruiting front, I think Nebraska is going to continue to try to push for more early commitments, and I think they're still in a good position with various guys around the country, especially here locally. Like, I think a lot of attention is turning to Malachi Coleman and Maverick Noonan, both guys Nebraska 100% wants in the recruiting class sooner than later. We'll see how that shakes out with both of them. And then in the portal, I still think that you need a big guy or two to still come to the roster, both on the offensive line and the defensive line. But with the spring, it's going to provide those guys on the roster already an opportunity to say, hey, wait a second, you don't need to keep adding so many guys. I'm here, and that could go for a number of different positions, which is going to be a really fun storyline.
Sledge was a nice ad. 15 seconds here, Greg. Nebraska's biggest competition for Malachi Coleman is who? Also for Maverick Noonan.
For Malachi Coleman right now, I would say Minnesota, though there are a lot of teams trying to emerge in that one. And then with Noonan, that offer from Stanford is generally a little bit of a game changer and makes guys kind of perk up and say, wait a second, things are going differently with my recruiting. So I'll put Stanford as another team to watch out for with the Noonan situation.
Greg, we'll see you soon. Thanks for bringing the island weather next week to us. Great stuff on the Pop Watson coverage, and appreciate your time, man.
Hey, thanks. You guys have a great week.
All right. Andy Markowski's next.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Back into it at Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Husker standout and assistant at Pius, Andy Markowski with us at Markowski_Andy on Twitter. Andy, it's been a week. What do you know, man? How are you?
Yeah, just right in the thick of hoop season, right? Men's basketball with Huskers, women's basketball in high school. So it's a great time of the year.
Juggling it. We'll start with the men last night. They may be covered, say some friends in the desert, but it was still kind of much of the same with Northwestern just drilling threes. Eddie, as you've coached and you've played, diagnose just what's your theory on the perimeter defense? Is it lack of attention defensively, just as an emphasis by Nebraska? Is it just lack of execution? Is it as simple as can't do it or won't do it? What do you think is it's gotten worse? I mean, everyone has a career high from 3 against Nebraska.
Yeah, it's all the above, Chris. I mean, their inability to switch and do some things on ball with ball screens hurts them. Their shot selection puts them in a tough spot with transition defense. Their perimeter, defenders aren't great at controlling penetration, so we end up having to help a lot on dribble drive, which creates, open step-up threes. Their inability to offensive rebound creates some kick-out opportunities. So it's not attention to scouting report. I think there's times that, they have to be there on the catch or close out to a shooter or run a shooter off the three-point line, and their attention to scouting report details, which is crucial at that level, is not there. So, it's not one thing. It's a combination of, they're just not very good defensively and struggle with some of the matchups in the Big Ten by just playing against better players and better teams.
Eddie Markowski with us. Should they be better? Is that a fair ask? I mean, with what the roster looks like, should they be better, or is it just there's no hope because they're facing better talent?
Yeah, at this point, Chris, you are who you are, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a lot of these kids didn't have a lot of data coming in. Walker, was a transfer. I thought at times last year did some good things. I mean, Mayan, was a transfer, ended up in junior college and back. I mean, Verge, offensively had a lot of accolades, but was there a reason why he didn't play in crucial minutes at times at Arizona State? McGowan's as a freshman, you knew that there would be deficiencies. Tominaga, the knock on him coming out was, he was great, good shooter, but wasn't athletic enough to defend, at the BCS level. So, you start to dissect the onion a little bit, and you realize that, offense is great, but in this league, you have to be able to defend, rebound, grind it out, have toughness. And, up to this point, Fred has not been able to put a roster together that can do those things, and that's why you're last in the conference.
So a thought with Nebraska and Fred, this is the third consecutive 20-loss season. COVID was COVID. You had to kind of scramble when you came in after year one when Tim left. But this was supposed to be the year. And Andy, just the feedback we get from fans, it's not just that they're losing, it's how they're losing. And hope has disappeared. So it's just a tough conversation for Trev. It's got to be just brutally tough for Fred to continue to go through this, and his staff and his assistants. There's still a lot of regular season basketball left. Well, I mean that window's closing, and then you have the Big Ten tournament. But if you were to guess, is this something? Is Fred a type of guy that wants to right this wrong, or is Fred the type of guy that says, look, this ain't working, I've got health concerns potentially? Because he does. I mean, he's a young guy, but he's had heart issues. I mean, is it time to just step away and take a deep breath and look at something new?
Yeah, and I'm not going to crawl into Fred's mind and speculate. Certainly this is miserable, right? I mean, losing is miserable at any level. I mean, high school level, junior high level, to have the eyes on you at the University of Nebraska, the Big Ten, and be responsible for consecutive 20-loss seasons. You have to start asking yourself, how can I fix it? And if you don't have a good answer to that, then you have to start wondering, is there an exit strategy that's fair for the staff and fair for the university and fair for the fans? Now he's under contract, right? I mean, I think Fred's a competitor, and I'm sure he, as any competitor, thinks he can figure it out and make some changes and find ways to right the ship. I question that. I just haven't seen enough where if the roster resets, which I think everybody anticipates to some capacity, it's going to reset. You positioned Bryce McGowan, your best player, as a 5-star one and done, right? So that's been the one positive, and you're not going to have that piece to build upon. Maybe you will. I don't know where his mind's at, but the whole time, when he was recruited, it was kind of a one-and-done situation for him. So the fact that you're looking at another rebuild in year 4, what as an administrator, are you really going to sign up for that when there hasn't been a lot of signs pointing you in the direction that this coaching staff, does have the answers or can put a product into the Big Ten to be successful? So whether or not Fred walks away from it, I'm assuming he's not going to walk away from $18 million. If that's a legit contract, they're going to have to be creative in how that gets resolved. And then, Trev Alvarez is going to have to make a really hard decision on if they don't feel Fred has an understanding of how it can be fixed and a good game plan around that. I think you have to part ways and move in a different direction.
Andy, do you think that the decision has already been made, or Trev's already leaning one way or another based on the results of this season? I mean, I think a lot of Husker Nation has fallen off the Fred Hoiberg bandwagon. They're ready to see what else could happen. Do you think that Trev is in the same boat, or do you think there's still something that can be done in these last couple games that could save Fred's job?
I don't think it comes down to, you win the last four, and, I think maybe Bill Callahan had a scenario like that, or, where you needed to win so many games to save your job. I think Trev has probably made his assessment of where the program is at. Certainly some apathy has set in, which is pretty alarming, at this stage of somebody's coaching tenure. I think you have to let the season play out, and then listen to Fred as what is he going to change, or what can he change to offer resolution to a tough situation. I think Trev will allow all that to play out, but as a good AD, I remember interviewing Bill Byrne as part of a grad project in 1999, and Bill Byrne said, "Hey, I keep a list of 3 or 4 coaches in my desk drawer, knowing that I might have to make a move quickly, whether the coach leaves or you have to terminate a coach." So I'm assuming Trev has started that process and has a feeling of maybe what candidates are out there and which candidates might be interested in Nebraska. So I don't think winning and losing is going to save Fred's job. I think the vision in the future is probably a postseason exit interview, unless the bottom falls out more than it has, and you might have to come in and make a decision, even before the end of the season, which I don't love. I don't think Trev will do that. I think there's 4 regular season games and 1 Big Ten game, but I got a feeling that a decision is pointed towards making a change, just on the premises. If the roster is going to reset, you might as well reset it, with a new coach that maybe gives you a different vision to be successful in the Big Ten.
Eddie Markowski, Husker standout assistant over at Pius, with us, Hail Varsity Radio. Andy, the next question is: do you get if there is a change, do you look at some names that have had success, i.e. a Turgeon, or do you look at the route Arizona's gone, or can you? I mean, what are the prospects like for a Nebraska?
Well, great question. I'm on record of being critical of the Tim Miles hire, where it fit the profile of other failed mid-major coaches, right? And, Tim grew on me and was a very likable guy. Tim had an energy and an ability to build the program, at least where it was competitive. I'm on record of saying I thought Fred's hire was a home run. So that tells you that maybe I'm not the right guy to ask, but I think everything's in play. I think you can win at Nebraska. I do think comparing, the Nebraska job now to what Danny Nee did in the 90s is very different. The Big 8 was 14 games. Big 12 was 16. You're playing a 20-game league schedule in a very well-coached, very well-supported conference. So getting to the NCAA tournament, I think, is a possibility at Nebraska. I believe that, with the facility and the arena and all that. So, somebody is going to want the job. I believe, if the right person gets the job, they can win. But I've really struggled on. I thought Fred had all the attributes to attracting a level of kid that could be competitive in the Big Ten. And they just haven't up to this point been able to do that. So maybe you got to go back to a program builder and somebody that's going to put a product on the floor that fights and competes and does a lot of little things, which the Nebraska fans tend to appreciate that more than the flash.
Andy, a thought on the Husker women tonight, road game as they are at Wisconsin. From your viewpoint, how's the morale? How are the women doing with the with what they've had to kind of go through this week?
Yeah, I obviously have a daughter on the team, so you hear bits and pieces, but those are internal matters, Chris. I really think the leadership on the team has shown to be strong. I think the togetherness of the team is there. They're going on the road against a bad Wisconsin team, but a team that still can upset you if you don't play well. So I do think the team's in a good spot mentally to finish the season strong. And if they do that, they're looking at a 6 to 7, an 8 seed in the NCAA tournament, which gives you a chance to win a first round game. So I think that's where their mind's at. Win tonight, and then there's a big game at home Sunday against probably a better Northwestern team than maybe their record and their reputation. So hopefully fans come out and support them on Sunday in their last home game.
Andy, we'll be seeing you, bud, for state basketball. Best to you guys tonight and this weekend, and thanks for the time today.
All right. Thanks, Smitty.
Like what you hear, high-quality radio and podcast is part of what we do at Hail Varsity. Hey, it's Chris Schmidt with Hail Varsity Radio, and I wanted to offer listeners of the Hail Varsity Radio Show podcast $10 off the price of an annual subscription. That means that you, for less than $20, can get everything we produce, 10 issues of our monthly magazine, our annual football yearbook, and all the premium content we produce at HailVarsity.com. Just go to HailVarsity.com/subscribe and enter in the promo code GBR for $10 off a full year of Hail Varsity. That's HailVarsity.com/subscribe, promo code GBR.
He's in his 30s, but sounds like he was born with a stogie in one hand and a brew in the other.
Now, say my name.
It's Schmitty on Hail Varsity Radio.
I got the body of a taut, preteen Swedish boy.
Back in with you, it's Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Time for a Jock Doc Wednesday, Nebraska Orthopedic Center. Dr. Brandon Seifert with us. Dr. Brandon, what do you know?
Not much, buddy. I'm not liking this weather change. We got pretty spoiled last Sunday.
Oh, the grill was going and times were good, man.
Drastic change. Right on.
Well, a big-time change for the Suns as they're 48-10. They're back at it post-All-Star break, and their leader, Chris Paul III, CP3, uber talented. I think he's in his 38th year. I'm kidding, in the NBA, but he's the ageless wonder out of Wake Forest, but has a thumb fracture that will keep him out 6 to 8 weeks. Now, he did log some minutes in the All-Star game with his thumb wrapped. I wonder how you can play in the All-Star game and then be out 6 to 8 weeks. I wonder if there's some load management mixed in here, given his age. But let's talk about this thumb fracture and, how detrimental it could be.
Yeah, absolutely. The what they mentioned, at least some of the reports that are putting out there, is doing a recheck in about 6 to 8 weeks. Obviously, there'll be some imaging they take along the way with some X-rays, and I'm assuming they'll probably re-image him in like an MRI, probably. What's interesting is they talked about shooting an MRI of this. My assumption here is the fact that if they're not going to do surgery, they're going to just rest it, watch it. That is probably something you couldn't really see in an X-ray. That's probably more they're seeing a significant inflammation on that MRI that would show kind of some what we call bony edema or inflammation fluid within the bone, kind of right where that ligament attaches, and that's probably where they're calling avulsion fracture, if you will. And essentially what avulsion fracture is where a ligament attaches onto the bone, and it kind of either pulls that bone away from where it's supposed to be, or pulls on enough that it creates maybe a little tiny crack line, but that bone hasn't completely moved away. And it sounds like that's probably the scenario he's in, where it's more of a kind of a non-displaced issue where that piece hasn't moved. With these, you would think they'd want to be a little bit more careful with him if they're going to rest him and treat these non-operatively. Letting him play in the All-Star game is kind of an interesting deal. But obviously we don't have all the imaging and history behind it. But from that perspective, looking at about 6 or 8 weeks, so hopefully back by playoff time is what they're talking. That sounds, pretty reasonable. Obviously, if things, change drastically here with the imaging things they're doing, then you have to start talking about, a surgical intervention, which again would potentially be even a longer time out.
Dr. Brandon Seifert's with us, Nebraska Orthopedic Center, a Jock Doc Wednesday, CP3, our topic. Dr. Brandon, we've all jammed our thumb, either back in the day or in the driveway. Is there a pretty distinct difference, in your opinion, talking with patients or even maybe having it yourself, between jamming your thumb and then the fracture we're talking about here with CP3?
Yeah, especially at that level, the amount of games that somebody like that has played and, being used to having, quote unquote, jam fingers, usually you notice something's different. Either that the pain level is different, the swelling level might be different. There's usually some kind of intangible there, maybe multiple, that indicates it's different. And from this perspective, you start talking about anywhere where there's kind of a fracture in the area, you're really going to lose quite a bit of, range of motion typically. And where this most likely is, again, they're not being super specific about where out along that bone in the thumb where this injury is. I can just kind of assume where it is. That ligament that attaches to that area is really critical with kind of gripping, palming the ball, all that kind of control. And so that's going to be a pretty significant issue for him. And obviously it must be that I would assuming he's probably noticing a big difference from this versus just your kind of run-of-the-mill, kind of thumb sprain, finger jam.
Dr. Brandon, let's talk what would be done surgery-wise and where you'd need to go in, and then just from a recovery and healing standpoint timeline.
Yeah, and so the kind of two areas if you're looking at your thumb at home here, basically if you kind of follow your thumb all the way down to the base of the thumb where it kind of hooks up to where the wrist is in that vicinity, in that area you can have an issue where you kind of fracture off or break off kind of a piece of the base of the thumb in that area, and the ligament kind of pulls it up. Similar deal if you kind of move a little bit more forward, a little bit closer to the tip of the thumb, kind of up to the knuckle, if you will, of the thumb, move up into that area, same thing can happen. That ligament can kind of pull off a little chip of bone. So to fix those, oftentimes it's more just kind of putting some pins in place, little wires to kind of hold that bone in place, and you slip those wires out a little later on after the fracture heals, a couple weeks later. You could also utilize some plates in the area, especially if it's kind of more at the base of the thumb. You might have to utilize something like a plate if that fracture is big enough. And then ultimately what can happen here is if the bony part, stays where it needs to, but that ligament starts to attenuate or kind of pull off, then you might have to go back in and do more of kind of a soft tissue ligamentous type repair, using some, suture or some special anchors to put all that back together. So there's kind of a variety of options that could be done here depending on specifically what injury he has. Unfortunately, they're not giving a whole bunch of details out about where exactly anatomically that's at, but those are some possibilities.
Dr. Brandon Seifert's with us. Jock Doc Wednesday, Nebraska Orthopedic Center, CP3, the talented Hall of Fame-bound point guard for Phoenix, our topic. So as we look at this region of the body, this thumb, and we know basketball and a point guard's ball handling, and CP3 is not only good with dealing with pressure, but assists, shooting, better than your average scoring point guard. And, of course, the assists. Is this a sensitive area to get re-injured is my next question. Say it heals or he has surgery and it heals. How likely is it to get dinged again just because of the nature of the position he plays?
Yeah, the big thing would be kind of that recovery period time. And so, if they continue to treat this kind of non-operatively like they're doing, then they're going to probably make a big push to obviously get him back for playoffs. And that's when you kind of run that risk of kind of retweaking it, re-injuring it, if you will. If they go down the surgery route, then they'll probably look more at the long game and probably not try to rush him back, play the rest of this year. Then that gives him plenty of time to heal. And once you kind of reach that, kind of full healing mode of this, he's going to do well. Won't really be a whole lot of kind of, retweaking, if you will. The biggest issue there becomes, kind of down the road is dealing with some stiffness, trying to redevelop some of that range of motion and that dexterity in that area. That'd be kind of the biggest issue. And in particular, if you have to do surgery in this area, one of the things you always worry about is some scar tissue development, maybe impacting some of the tendon function in that area. So there definitely are some things, at least surgically, that can create some extra hazards, at least in the hand and the fingers.
Dr. Brandon Seifert's with us, Nebraska Orthopedic Center, a Jock Doc Wednesday, as we're talking about Chris Paul from Phoenix, this thumb injury and this window of 6 to 8 weeks. He's pretty confident in his teammates to, as he says, hold it down. 48-10, the best record in the NBA, top seed. I know Golden State's going to try and make a push. Pretty interesting West, and we'll see where it goes. Dr. Brandon, stay warm this week. Thanks for jumping in with us for a few minutes here on Hail Varsity.
All right. Thanks, Chris. Appreciate you guys. Take care.
Good stuff from Dr. Brandon. We'll wind down a Wednesday, busy Thursday to tell you about. It's Hail Varsity. We're presented by the Nebraska Lottery.
Like what you hear? High-quality radio and podcasts are just part of what we do at Hail Varsity. I'm Brandon Vogel, managing editor. I wanted to offer listeners of the Hail Varsity Radio Show podcast $10 off the price of an annual subscription. That means that you, for less than $20, can get everything we do. 10 issues of our monthly magazine, our annual football yearbook, and all of the premium content we produce at hailvarsity.com. Just go to hailvarsity.com/subscribe and enter the promo code GBR for $10 off a full year of Hail Varsity. That's hailvarsity.com/subscribe, promo code GBR.
Miss us?
Come here, brother. Give me a hug. Bring it in for the real thing.
We're on call for you. Catch the podcast at hailvarsity.com, the ESPN Lincoln app, or download them on iTunes.
Saddle up, partner.
Back to Hail Varsity Radio.
One final time tomorrow on the show, we'll try and reconnect with Mike Babcock. Do that right for tomorrow. We'll run down Brandon Vogel from Hail Varsity, Danny Burke, Burke's Best Bets, and then Gary Barnett and Coach Ron, well, former assistant coach Ron Brown, offensive analyst Ron Brown. So,
I'll say I'll be excited to talk to I mean, it's a great whole lineup. I'm kind of bummed we didn't get to talk to Babcock today because we got an interesting performance from Sam Houston last night against one of the top teams in the country in Oklahoma State.
Yeah, well, and Sam Houston won.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, they won 6-3. I mean, they took it to extras, but still 6-3 over one of the top teams in the country.
They're off. Sam Houston State's probably a little better than we thought, and that was part of why Will scheduled them. I mean, it's not good to go 1-3 against him. You have Buns that's out with the elbow. We don't have an official word other than he isn't coming back this season.
Yeah, we don't know what the injury actually is, but
specific injury we can
essentially say he's probably going to need Tommy John surgery to fix it, based on what we've heard and based on he's had Tommy John in that same elbow before.
So Nebraska will try to regroup against TCU. We'll check in with Jabba Chamberlain, our Husker insider and Husker great. Friday, we'll be down at the Single Barrel ahead of Nebraska, Iowa. We'll see what Nebraska shows up, if they can extend and expand their minutes of good basketball beyond single digits to more of a full game or at least a full half. Iowa absolutely drilled Sparty last night. On the portal news, you have a couple of defensive linemen Nebraska's put an offer out of North Texas. It's Grayson Murphy and Gabriel Murphy. See if Nebraska can land them.
Are they twins related, I assume?
They're twins. Each defensive end prospect announced on social media today they'd gotten an offer from Nebraska after they had a chat with defensive coordinator Eric Chinander.
I'm just imagining the situation where Chinander went in going to offer one and offers one of them and then sees the other one in the hallway and gets confused and offers a second one. It could make for a good sitcom.
Both guys have 3 years to play, and they're a package deal. So they're both out of Dallas. They've combined for 26.5 tackles for loss and 15.5 sacks last season, so that's 8 and 7. Any way you slice it, Grayson had 8.5 and 14 TFLs. Gabriel 7 and 12. So that would work. Can they jump from North Texas to Big Ten? The Twins are top 10 edge rushers in the 24/7 rankings. This story from 24/7. They don't have a hard and fast timeline to decide. Of course, you think back to Khalil and Carlos Davis and Darian and Damian Daniels. Yeah, the ultimate brother combination, Christian and Jason.
Khalil and Carlos are the only two twins that I can remember off the top of my head. Are there any others from back before my time that I'm not remembering here? Twins playing at Nebraska at the same time?
No. mean, I'm probably whiffing on the obvious. You can go to the brother card, but not the twins thing.
Yeah, because Bo and Barrett were 2 years apart, I think. The Rude brothers. And
Barrett played as a freshman.
Yeah,
started on the national championship team, or a team that played for the title.
Yeah, I'm blanking. I think Carlos and Cleo might be the only two other twins that I can remember.
Yeah, it'll come to me here in a bit. But we'll talk to you tomorrow at 4. And find the podcast, subscribe to it. Hail Varsity Radio, Spotify, iTunes, Google Play. Thanks for tuning in.
A Hurrdat Media Production.